Hi, I'm Nick Ross for IT Wire. I'm with Troy Sellers, who's the solution architect at Avon. And Troy, who are you and what is your role?
Yeah, hi Nick, and thanks for the opportunity today. My name's Troy Sellers, and I run the solution architecture group for Ivan here in Asia Pacific. For us, that includes Japan, Korea, and India, as well as Southeast Asia and ANZ.
Cool. And how did Ivan first come about and what does its name actually mean?
Yeah, interestingly enough, the name doesn't really mean anything at all. I think we just like the sound of it. The four co-founders of the company came from engineering backgrounds with some extensive experience in software infrastructure. They had this idea they could productize their expertise and experience that they've accumulated over the years by building, bespoke systems for customers or their employers at the time. They played around with software consulting a little bit and then ended up founding Ivan. But through customer discussions and the like, gradually led to building software and products that really empower other developers, with the goal of providing them with access to the best open source technologies, allows them to focus, on what they do is creating applications for their users.
Okay. And why is Ivan associated with open source so much?
Yeah, Ivan is founded and grounded in open source. It's actually the core of everything we do here, from our culture of open mindedness through to the desire to give back and contribute. Really interestingly enough, we are fully committed to that idea of open source. One of the founders' goals was to contribute back to the open source community. We really love the idea that we can provide a platform for our customers to operate and store data on a complete stack of open source technology, which we use to build our software as well. We truly believe that open source delivers the best technology to the industry, and it's a massive opportunity for us as well as our customers.
Okay. So kind of touched on this already, I guess, but why would companies want to work with Ivan in particular?
Mm. Simplicity is the really big theme here, Nick. We want to make our open source data technologies really simple and easy to access for all developers across all the major cloud platforms. Um, we manage the data infrastructure that's required to operate these open source tools at scale. It's interesting. A lot of folks in the industry have had that experience of downloading an open source project and then getting it running. For me, the first one was Red Hat Linux
Mhm.
6,
Yeah.
which probably dates me a little bit, but usually this usually the story is the same. You're super impressed by the software once you get running, but you have that realization that operating it in a production environment is going to be kind of challenging. And this is why companies want to work with Ivan. They want to take, advantage of these technologies, but without necessarily having to build that deep expertise in the operational knowledge required to run at scale in production across, multiple zones in public clouds and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, the customers are just simply looking to get their engineers focused on the business problems that their businesses are solving, instead of doing things like rebalancing Kafka clusters.
Yeah, and you've partly answered the question, but what are the biggest business challenges that open source can really solve right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting when I go out and speak to customers. I find that they're usually dealing with one or more of three sort of main buckets of challenge. The the first one is they're trying to seize the moment of the economy of the day. And today, there's that example of being able to innovate and gain market share in the digital space is really compelling for a certain type of customer. Um, there's another sort of group of users of the software that they're facing pressure from their competitors who are doing this potentially better than they are at the moment. And so they're really trying to figure out how to handle that challenge. And the third group is sort of those customers that are being asked to find efficiencies in their platforms and their digital teams. They've got that do more with less type of challenge. And in all those use cases, open source technology really plays a key part. In fact, like the demand for open source technology is skyrocketing. In a recent
Mhm.
report commissioned with Slashdata, Ivan found 66% of respondents expect open source technologies to grow in importance when selecting future databases as a service.
So I'm
To give
guessing
you,
Ivan uses open source a lot itself. How has the company embraced it?
yeah,
What's examples?
yeah, we wanted to build the company we wanted to work for. And you're absolutely right. The entire platform's built on open source technology for us as well. It was really important for us to establish the right corporate culture as well. And that set the tone for the company moving forward. Our core values of openness, courage, and ownership are really reflective of the experience of contributing to open source projects. And employing people that fit into this culture is absolutely instrumental, bringing us closer to our business goals. And that's providing that best open source data technology to developers across the globe.
And how does Ivan otherwise help the open source community in general?
Yeah, we've got two main levers, I guess, here at Ivan for that. What we do internally with and for our employees, and what we are doing externally for the users of these technologies. Internally, we run our open source project office. It's a team of nearly 20 software engineers whose entire job is committing source code to these open source projects up team. We also, additionally, internal teams are allowed to encourage to commit upstream and rewarded through our Plankton program, which is sort of the folks that aren't working directly for the OSPO, the project office. They also have the opportunity to be rewarded for their time spent on open source contributions. Externally, we do things like we've just announced our free plan that provides access to our most popular open source databases. So that's Ivan for PostgreSQL, Ivan for MySQL, and Ivan for Redis. And we're making these services available for users to adopt, learn, and use completely free of charge.
Okay, and where do you see open source heading in the next 3 to 5 years?
There are probably two main trends that we see at the moment that are driving the success of that. The first one that I found really interesting was this hybrid work situation that we've all experienced in the last couple of years. Hybrid work is now sort of becoming that desired reality rather than an enforced situation. And the need to provide tools and platforms to that class of that group of workers really supports that continued growth. If you couple that with the growth in online platforms that support the new at-home workforce, those open source technologies just are continuing rise in popularity. Those platforms are made possible by the growth and adoption of public cloud, which themselves are made possible by open source software. Like, public cloud doesn't exist without open source software. It just, as we know it today, it just doesn't exist. And so the trends that drive public cloud adoption continue to drive the adoption and growth of those open source projects. The second part of that, I think, which has been, I guess, very public quite recently, is the rise and continued rise of emerging technologies like, artificial intelligence and machine learning, those kind of things. The rise of these technologies are driven largely by the cooperative and open environment that open source projects foster. And some of the largest and most successful machine learning models to date are all open source. It's remarkable how much open source ethos is in that community. And so that sort of drives that. But alongside that is the development environment or the tooling that these engineers require to handle, like the massive amounts of training data that these models need, or the real-time streams of data that these models are deployed against when they're deployed into production. And it's the requirements and growth of these will also continue to drive that new frontier of AI.
So the news is full of all high-profile data breaches in very big corporates at the moment. What does Ivan do to make sure it protects its customer data?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick, and I'm sure it's something that's top of mind for quite a lot of your viewers. We are committed at Ivan to our customers' information security, privacy, and compliance needs. One of the main advantages of open source software that we see is this concept of there's many eyes on the code, and having like a code base that's open and accessible allows for identification and rectification of security related defects really, really fast. Traditionally, though, the challenge has always been deployment and operation of these technologies. As your data platform adopts more of these capabilities, you need to have more experts in-house to ensure that you're not inadvertently exposing your customer data. This is where Ivan really helps our customers by making certain that those lower level operational concerns are always taken care of, from, deployments correctly into the right isolated network resources on the internet, protected from the internet, to zero downtime security patching and version upgrades. We have a sizable security team that's on hand 24/7 to make sure this is always done as the way it should be. And we take a lot of this work on behalf of our customers, so they can rely on us to patch and operate these services while I get to do the thing that they're doing, which is, supporting their business services.
I've got to ask, because people will be wondering, with your backdrop, there's a crab logo next to Ivan. What's that about?
Yeah, it's always an interesting question. When we started, we wanted to demonstrate, the attitude that we work in a modern way. It's slightly different, and we like to, maintain a bit of a fresh and a playful approach. Like, we're doing serious things, but you can kind of have fun when you're doing it. And we had the name Ivan, and we were asking ourselves, what's the visual identity? There was a proposal to go with a design around the letter A, and we had another proposal from a creative agency to go with a little crab instead. We have 4 founders, and I guess the lesson you learn from startups is never have a startup with an even number of people, because
Right.
it was 2 for the A and 2 for the crab. And so our CEO, Oskari, he showed it to his 3-year-old daughter to make the final decision, and she chose this one, and Krabby was born. So I'm pretty happy that's the way it ended out. I kind of like that.
That's a nice touch, yeah. I guess on a more serious note, though, how can potential new partners work with you? Do you do direct sales or go through the channel, MSPs?
Yeah. It's there's a number of different things that happen there. We work with an ecosystem of technology partners. Obviously, our cloud service providers like AWS, Azure, and Google. Our implementation partners. These are the organizations that are out there building, turnkey custom applications on behalf of their customers, and that are choosing to deploy the data infrastructure for those solutions onto Ivan. And we also have some simple resellers in some parts of APAC. CloudAce in the Japan market is a great example, but by no means the only one. Most importantly, customers are really at the core of what we do, and we're always willing to work with our partners in any capacity to help them build, awesome applications that are scalable, portable, and cloud agnostic.
And is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, look, I'd just like to sort of reinforce some of that stuff that we spoke about. We really are the leader in open source technologies. We help organizations really fuel that innovation that's needed to create those awesome data-intensive applications. It can really focus on startups, but it's also equally useful in enterprises to drive those business results. And again, having open source data technologies at the forefront of those transformation journeys can really accelerate that. We're really excited to continue the expansion of our offerings and our commitment on to the developers. And I think the Ivan Free Plan is a really great step towards realizing that vision that we've got for making sure that open source technology is available to everyone in the community.
Hey, well, that's excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Troy Sellers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick.